Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well. Today in this session, I'm going to discuss the strategies to increase your marks in the mains, especially in each and every answer. Because since the mains is over, I have been talking with so many students who were the part of our rankers program and the senior batch in 2024. After talking with them, after going through their copies, I have identified few gaps in the answer writing. And trust me, my friends, those gaps are not really related to the content. Yes, in some copies, there are content gaps, but it is more about the structuring of the answer, right? And as far as the structuring of the answer is concerned, it is not only about whether you are able to pick up the core demand of the question or not, but it is at the same time also about how you are writing the introduction, how you are deciphering the various demand in the question. It is not always about the core demand, but what are the non-core demand of the question. It is all about how you are going to establish the flow in the entire answer, starting from the introduction to the conclusion. So I'm going to discuss each and every aspect of the answer writing in this session. I will give you the live demonstration. I have picked up few previous year's questions of 2023 mains, and I will show you what are the common approach and what is the approach which the expert will be following. And in fact, they have followed and they have cleared the mains, right? So I am going to discuss each and everything. But if you are planning to start answer writing, for next 3 months, and if you think you need to increase your score like by 0.5 marks or 1 marks in each and every answer, this could be the best opportunity. I would request all of you to fill the form given in the description box, and you can set up a meeting with me and the other senior mentors. You can bring your copies, you can bring your notes. We are going to go through, we will be going through your notes and answer writing, and we will be discussing what strategies you need to follow, right? But before we start, I want all of you to focus on these two words, that is awareness and the practice. Awareness of what? Awareness of basically all those components which I will be dealing with in this video. There are 6 components to improve the answer writing, which I am going to discuss. You need to be aware of those components. Because right now, if I give you a question and if I ask you to write the answer right away, what will be the first thought which will be coming in your mind? Your mind will directly jump on the content in your notes, right? And you will try to pick up few points, few examples, few data, and you will try to use in your answers. But that is not what I want you to do. I want you to create I want you to think the structuring of the answer. Structuring of the answer means what is going to be your introduction? What is going to be flow in your answer? In how many parts you are going to divide the core and non-core demand of the question? Is there any scope of value addition in the answer? Right? So all those components, there are certain parameters which I have picked up and I'm going to discuss in front of all of you. And second part is the practice, right? Even though after watching this entire video, you might be comfortable, you might understand how to pick up or how to frame a very good answer. But the problem is, if you are not going to practice it, it will be very difficult to replicate the same in the mains hall. I hope this is clear. Now, these are some gaps which I have identified after talking with the last batch. And those gaps are, the very first point is narrow interpretation of the question. Narrow interpretation of the question is, whenever you read the question, there are always some keywords in the question, right? We pick up the keyword, we define the keyword in the introduction. Based on the keyword, we write the complete answer, right? But after reading the answer which you have written, I have seen, or I have personally felt that the flow is missing, right? it does not give me the feeling of completion, or it does not give me the feeling of, a holistic understanding about any particular issue on which the question is based on. So narrow interpretation of the question is the biggest problem. Then what is the wide, or what should be the interpretation of the question? What all parameters you need to consider when you are interpreting the question? That is what we will be discussing. Second part is structuring of the answer. Now this is the biggest culprit, because structuring of the answer, I have seen everyone is writing the very definition-based introduction, significance, challenges, way forward, and conclusion. Some of you might not are confused. Like, if I am writing the challenge suggestions, then I don't need to write the conclusion. Or if someone is writing the conclusion, he is not writing the suggestion. He is not giving any suggestions or the way forward, right? So this is wrong. So basically, the structuring means the idea, the kind of data content you are going to highlight in the introduction, right? The deciphering the demand of the question, what kind of suggestions are you going to provide in your answers, right? And what is the idea of conclusion? So this entire discussion is based on the ideas, right? So I'm not going to focus much on the content part, right? Because content, I believe, if you have given 2 mains or maybe interviews, content is not a big problem, right? But yes, if you are scoring like 2 marks, 2.5 marks, then definitely you need to first work on the content. But again, without answer writing, your content will not get improved, because you will never know what are the value addition point in each and every topic. If you are not going to practice answer writing, if you are not going to discuss those answers with us, right? So content is important, but after preparing good notes, still you will face problem when it comes to scoring a good marks or increasing your marks by 0.5 or 1 number, right? So structuring is very important. So in this video, I will be focusing very less on the content, but structuring of the content I will be dealing with. Then brainstorming the PYQs. My friends, brainstorming is something which is going to expand the scope in your answers. If you are not doing a brainstorming, trust me, you will not be able to open the demand of the question in the mains exam itself. So brainstorming of PYQ is very, very important. But some people say, some students have come to me and they have told me, sir, we are writing the answers, and like every day we are practicing 2 answers, 3 answers. Students try to understand brainstorming is different, answer writing is different. If you are practicing answer writing on a daily basis, you may be able to judge whether you can complete the paper on time or not, whether you are able to replicate the important points which are there in your notes or not. But brainstorming is something which will help you to develop the critical thinking, right? So how to do the brainstorming and all, I'm going to explain that as well, because I have picked up the previous year's question. Visibility in the answer. The visibility which I'm talking about, it is not that visibility which usually many students understand, right? Visibility is not like highlighting the keyword, right? It is not like highlighting the keyword or putting the heading in the boxes. It is not like that. Visibility means, if suppose you are addressing the demand of the question, right? Suppose there is demand 1 and demand 2, right? And under demand 1, you are writing like 8 points, and demand 2, you are writing 7 points, right? Now, just let's compare this structure with this one. Instead of creating 2 demands, what I will do, I will create further subheading, right? Like social, political, legal, historical, economical, like this. So this will give better visibility, right? But dividing the demand further is not an easy task. There are certain parameters which you have to always consider when you are reading any question, when you are brainstorming the previous year's questions, right? So what are those parameters? That is what I'm going to explain, right? So visibility is something this. Then the next part is emphasizing only on the content. My friends, content has limitations, right? Limitations means, the very first limitation is 80% of the content I have seen is very common in every answer, right? That is the first limitation. Second limitation is, suppose you have prepared a good content on 10 topics. What is the guarantee that UPSC will ask 10 questions from the same topic? Chances are very less, right? But if you are going to develop this thought process, which we are going to deal in some time, definitely you will be able to frame a very good answer even in those questions which are unknown to you, right? So just do not only emphasize on the content, because this is what I have seen, right? Many students who were senior, right, they are again focusing on the content, but they are not focusing on the structuring of the answer, brainstorming the PYQs. Then very generic suggestions and concluding remarks. My friends, suggestions or the way forward which we provide, I have seen they are very generic, right? They are not backed up by any example, any reference, any case studies, right? So please make sure when you are writing the way forward, giving any suggestions, they should be very, very specific. It should be practical in the nature. It should be actionable, right? So, and conclusion. Conclusion is again futuristic. Summarize, right? I have seen many students talking to me, sir, do I need to summarize the content in the conclusion? I don't understand how can you summarize the entire answer in 2 lines. Basically, summarizing the entire answer in conclusion is a wrong idea, basically. If you really want to conclude your answer, you should highlight the broad objective which will be achieved, right? For example, sustainable development goal, inclusive growth, Viksit Bharat, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. These are some broad objective, right? So this is the idea of conclusion. So all these parts we are going to discuss in some time. So these are the basic reason. And if you are not thinking about all these issues right now, it will be too late after the prelims, right? And this is exactly what we are doing in the senior program of Sure Shot, right? Where we are discussing in the post-test discussion, we are discussing the structuring part of the answer. Even in one-to-one discussion, we are doing the same thing. So if you have any issues, or if you find there are some gaps in your answer writing, please you can bring your copies, your notes, and definitely we will be there to help you. Right. Now, these are some components, the features of the program, which you might already be aware of. There are pre-test discussions, post-test discussions, one-to-one session, group discussions. So we will make sure that you are, like in next 3 months, you are engaged with the answer writing, right? Be it notes making, be it PYQ brainstorming, everything will be covered in this program, right? For any doubts, please fill the form. Then, idea behind boosting the marks in every answer. How to boost 0.5 or 1 marks in each and every answer. What is the idea? No one is talking about the idea. Everyone is talking about we should add 4 points, 3 points here, 2 points there. No one is talking about the idea. And that is the idea I am going to discuss in this session. So as soon as you read the question, the very first question you should ask yourself, what is the reasoning behind the framer's intent? Means you should ask yourself, why this question is asked, right? And trust me, student, if you are going to get the answer of this question, right? Like why the framer or why this particular question is asked by the UPSC or even in the test series, you will be able to write the best possible introduction. And I'll show you how this interpretation or this reasoning will help you to frame a very good introduction. Then second is, that is what I have written, idea of introduction beyond conventional approach to define or describe. When we see the question, suppose it is based on the inclusive growth, right? Or it is based on the sustainable development. What do? We write down the definition of inclusive growth, the sustainable development, but we never try to write the introduction which matches with the demand of the question. We never even think about it, because that is how we have been taught. Whenever you find the keyword, describe it, define it, right? But there are other ways you can write your introduction. Then idea of structuring the answer beyond core and non-core demand of the question, right? Identifying the core and non-core demand is very easy nowadays. Everyone knows. If you have written like few answers, you will know what is the core and non-core demand of the question. But there are other aspects, right, which we are going to again discuss when we will be discussing the questions live. Then incorporating value-driven perspective beyond statistics and examples. All of you know that in GS paper 2 and 3, value additions are what? Like facts, example, data and all, right? But beyond that, what do you think can be the value addition, right? That is again I am going to explain. The second last point is idea of suggestions, reforms beyond conventional non-actionable approach. I have already discussed about it. Whenever you are giving any suggestions, right? Whenever you are talking about the reforms, please make sure they are actionable, right? Then the idea of conclusion beyond summarizing the answer or futuristic approach. So I'm not saying that your conclusion cannot be the futuristic, but at the same time, it should highlight the broad objective as well, especially in GS paper 2 and 3, right? So let's try to apply all these steps while deciphering the demand of the question. Because without this, without thinking about this, it is very difficult to increase your score. And these are the points you should be aware of, right? Now, for example, introduction, right? Introduction can be of three types. One is significance-based, issue-based, definition-based. Now, whether the question is significance-based, issue-based, or definition-based, it has to be substantiated with some data, facts, examples, right? Now, data, facts, example, reports, right? These aspects can vary. For polity, for example, constitution articles will become the fact, right? In economics, some report, RBI report or bulletin will become the fact, or it will from that report you can extract some data, or it can act as a reference point, right? But what is more important? Does your introduction sounds like it is significance, or whether it is highlighting the issue, or whether it is definition or descriptive in the nature? This depends on how you are interpreting the question, or what is the intent behind framing the question, right? For example, this is a question. Examine the need for electoral reforms as suggested by various committees with particular reference to one nation, one election, right? Just I'm asking you, if you have written the 2023 mains, what was your introduction? Let me tell you, majority of you will say you have defined one nation, one election. You have defined it, right? But read the question and ask yourself why the question is asked. So question says, examine the need for electoral reforms as suggested by various committees, right? As suggested by various committees with particular reference to one nation, one election, right? So, after reading the question, now I know we are talking about the need for electoral reforms. This reforms through one nation, one election, right? As this reform is also suggested by the various committees. So, now I got the idea, instead of defining one nation, one election, which I know are going to be very common approach, what I'll be dealing with, I will highlight this need, right? Need for reforms. Whenever there is a need, right? Either we can write down the significance or some issues. We can highlight some issues also, because of which we are talking about the electoral reforms. Right? For example, let's see this. This is a question. There are three types of introduction. One nation, one election aims to synchronize Lok Sabha and state assembly polls, reducing frequency and streamlining the electoral process as a part of broader electoral reforms. That is the first type of introduction. Second type is one nation, one election concept endorsed by Ram Nath Kovind committee proposes simultaneous Lok Sabha and state assembly election. So this is significance based introduction, right? This is kind of descriptive plus some fact is there which is good. Now look at this third type of introduction. The Law Commission and Niti Aayog has highlighted the need for electoral reforms. Why? To save 4,500 crore per cycle and streamline governance. Now, what do you think is the most appropriate introduction in this case? So in this case, I think this will be the best introduction, because according to the demand of the question, I have given the name of the committees, right? I have highlighted the need. What is the need? To save 4,500 crore rupees, which is kind of significance as well, right? So this is how you should think about it. So now, based on this question or the intent behind this question, I have picked up this particular statement for my introduction, right? I hope you got the idea. Now, let's move on to the next question, where I'll be talking about the structuring, which is the most important part. But before you start structuring your answer, there are 6 parameters I have identified, or you can say, based on these parameters, you have to find the scope. Suppose if you are reading any particular question, you have to ask yourself, is there any scope to divide the statement of the question? Is there any scope to divide the keywords in the question? Is there any scope to divide the tail word in the question? And I'm going to highlight why and how these aspects are being ignored in the answer. Is there any scope to include the flowchart in the answer? Diagrams, map? So, when you are reading the question, you should be aware of these 6 words. And when you are brainstorming the PYQs, just write down these 6 keywords and then start exploring the question. Start structuring your answer. Don't write the content. If you do not have a content, don't write it. Just at least start making the structure based on these keywords. For example, I will show you. There is a question I have picked up. Discuss the impact of Bhakti movement on medieval Indian society in terms of bringing socio-religious reforms. Right? So let me give you what is the common approach. How everyone, most of us are going to address the demand of this question. So the very first thing in the introduction, we will be talking about the Bhakti movement, right? I may add some fact like it flourished between 8th and 17th CE, and I can even mention some name, right? Like Kabir and all. Apart from this, I don't think so anything else can be written in the introduction, right? Now, when it comes to the main body, now just remember those words: keyword, tail word, and statement of the question. I will show you, or we will try to find out, is there any scope to divide the keyword or tail word or statement? So, as far as the statement of the question is concerned, let's pick up the statement first. Impact of Bhakti movement on medieval Indian society in terms of bringing socio-religious reform, right? First, let me tell you what will be your approach. You can pick up a pen and paper, take a pause, and then you can structure your answer, and then I'll show you how the experts or how the rankers have suggested the structure for this answer, how they have been implementing, what kind of approach they have been implementing, right? So, according to the common or many students, the answer will be like this, like the contribution of Bhakti movement, right? Max to max, what you all will do, you are going to divide social reforms and religious reforms, right? That is how you are going to structure your answer. And you will write down 4-5 points here, 5 points here, and you will end the answer. This is going to happen when you are going to ignore this part, right? Now, according to these keywords, I will explain what should be the proper structure of this answer, right? So, this is how basically I personally explain to my students who visit or who book the session with us in our office, right? So that is the reason I am emphasizing, if you really want to understand how this entire process is going to work, you can fill the form, you can bring your copies, your notes, we will sit together and we will discuss the entire plan, the entire approach. So in this question, what I will do, I will start thinking. Question is saying that this is the Bhakti movement, right? I am talking about the main body. The Bhakti movement has brought some socio-religious reforms, right? Social and religious reform, right? Now, since the question says reform, so these social and religious practices has reformed after the Bhakti movement. That is what the question says, right? Don't you think I need to write down what was the issues in the society before this reforms or before this Bhakti movement? Because if I am not going to provide this reference, how would I know the reforms has taken place? Or this is the reform in the positive direction? How would I know? So, after the introduction, I will talk about the issues which was prevailing in the society. And for this, I will use the flow chart. This is how I have broken down the statement of the question, right? Point number one. Point number two, the keyword socio-religious reform. That keyword I have broken down into two parts, social and religious. And social further I can talk about like women, right? I can talk about the vulnerable section or depressed classes, right? This is how I can further break down. Now the third part is the tail word. Tail word is discuss, right? Discuss is what? It's a critical command word. Though it is a hybrid word, but it can be used as a critical and descriptive. If you really want to know how these command words should be interpreted, I have already prepared a video on the YouTube. You can go and watch that. You will get a lot of clarity. Okay. So since in this question, this discuss word will be used critically, right? So what I will do after writing these significance, I will write down some issues. Not issues, rather limitation. Because Bhakti movement could not bring the socio-religious reforms across the country, right? There was some barriers, there was some limitations which we need to talk about, right? So I will talk about the limitations as well. And now I will try to link the relevance of Bhakti movement with the contemporary society. This is how my structure is going to be. Now I am asking you one question. Don't you think my points in this are going to be more visible? Yes, it is. There is one thing which I am missing again in this structure, and that is what I will do in between. I will write down what are the features of Bhakti movement. Right? So this is how the structure should be done. So basically what I have done, there were some issues. To counter these issues or to address these issues, Bhakti movement came, or Bhakti movement started rather. I will write down the features. And because of this, we saw some significance in the sphere of social and religious. However, the successful was limited, so there were some limitations. Since it was a history question, we cannot provide the way forward here, but it is still in the contemporary society, it is still relevant. Right? Now, this is what I was talking about, the visibility. Every single aspect of the question is highlighted in this. And this is exactly what I mean to say when I asked you to start brainstorming the PYQ. Do you think it is that difficult? Whenever you are sitting with your friends, whenever you are having a coffee or tea break, you can pick up just one question at a time and you can start discussing with your friends. You can discuss with your peer group. Maybe in the library you can pick a few friends and you can start discussion on a daily basis. Right? It has nothing to do with the content. Because content will get enriched based on this only. Now, after this structuring, I will start thinking, do I have the notes? Do I have the content for this question in my notes? If it is not, go and prepare the notes or update your notes rather. Right? I hope this is clear. Now let me pick up one more question. How did colonial rule affect the tribal in India, and what was the tribal response to colonial operation, right? Now, as far as the generic approach I'm concerned, how you think you are going to address this demand of this question, let me tell you quickly. So as you will see, okay, I'm talking about the narrow interpretation. How the narrow interpretation will be done as far as the introduction is concerned. What are you going to write in the introduction? Right? Either you can start writing the introduction about the colonial rule, right? Or either you can talk about, because of this, the impact of colonial rule, the first expression of tribal response was seen in 1855, Santhal Rebellion, for example. Right? Why I am adding this point? Why I am emphasizing on this fact? Because you remember, I told you, whenever you are writing significance issues, you must highlight, you must add some facts, some example. So no matter whether I am going to talk about the colonial rule, the issues, whether I am going to talk about the significance, I will mention one fact for sure. Okay? So this can be the introduction. Now, as far as the main body is concerned, what will be your response? What will be your structure of the answer? Let me tell you. So basically, you will talk about the colonial rule affect the tribal. So you will talk about the colonial rule, right? And after that, you will talk about the tribal response. Tribal response, right? Now, again, let's think about those keywords, 6 keywords, right? The statement of the question, tailword in the question, right? Keyword in the question, map, flowchart, and diagram, right? So, colonial rule, this is a keyword, right? Can I break it down? Because the colonial policies, it was related to the land, economy. It was also related to the culture, right? Religion. Now I can think, because I am trying to find a scope to divide or to find the keyword and divide it, right? So I will talk about various policies of the British government and its effect. So this part is again going to increase the visibility. Now, as far as the tribal response is concerned, what do you think you are going to write? You will be talking about various, like Santhal Rebellion and all, right? There are like Bhil, Munda and all, right? But that is how you are going to write down. This was the response, right, from the tribal groups. But I am more interested to know what was its impact. I'm not interested in just knowing the response of the tribal. What has been its impact is another aspect which you might miss in your answer, right? For example, this is what I have shown you. See, like land alienation, forest loss, economic exploitation, right? So these are the points I am going to address, through which I am going to address the first demand of the question, like economic exploitation. Remembering, giving the examples are very important, right? Then, Santhal Rebellion, what was its impact? Protested landlords and led to Santhal Parganas, right? Then Munda resisted forest laws, led to the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act, right? So these impact are going to be very, very important. And many of you will even understand this, right? Now, Bhil Revolt, strengthen tribal identity. Now, what is going to be value addition? Now, again, I will think about, am I missing anything out of those 6 keywords? Yes, I can include map. And all these movement or rebellion I can highlight in the map, region at least, right? On the India map, I can highlight this region. Don't you think evaluator will be impressed? Definitely, right? Now, apart from this, let's pick up the last question. Very important question, right? And one more thing, my friends. If the question would have been like discuss, analyze, examine, then you could have add one more aspect or one more part in your answer, that is, what was the limitation or what were the challenges they were facing, right? Why the outcome of these rebellion or revolt was not very effective. But since the question says only how, it's a descriptive command word, I'm not going to get into that, right? Now let's see the last question. Faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP, particularly of MSMEs. Comment on the present policies of the government in this regard, right? What is the introduction do you think you are going to write? Let me tell you, 99% of the student going to start with contribution. Contribution of MSME or manufacturing sector in GDP. This is not a wrong way to introduce, but this is not relevant as far as the demand of the question is concerned. Now, this is where the first point, which is intent, will help you. Why the question is asked? Ask yourself. The question says, faster economic growth requires increased share of the manufacturing sector in GDP. It means our GDP is not increasing, right? Or economic growth is not taking place due to the manufacturing sector, right? Because question says to achieve the growth in our GDP, the contribution of manufacturing sector, especially MSMEs, are very, very crucial. So it means it is more of issue. Issue is basically contribution of MSME sector, right, is less, right? And we need to focus on this. So in my introduction, what I am going to talk about, instead of this, I will pick up the issue-based introduction, right? Issue-based introduction. And in this, my data will be the trend of contribution of either manufacturing sector or MSME in GDP. And definitely this data should highlight the worrisome, right? This will be my perfect introduction because it aligned with the demand of the question. I hope the idea is clear for the introduction. Now, as far as the demand of the question is concerned, let me tell you what will be your approach. Most of you will think this is the best approach. So, what you will do, you will talk about faster economic growth required. So, the first subheading will be the significance of MSME sector, right, for GDP growth. Then you will read the second statement is comment on the present policies. You will talk about the government policies. Since you will say it's a 10 marker question, there is no space left, you are going to conclude your answer. Right? This is incomplete answer. No matter how good you have the content, you will not score more than 3 marks. You will not get more than 3 marks for sure. Now, what is the expert approach when this question comes? So first I will ask, since the question is based on the issue, right? In the introduction, I will highlight this issue first. Issues with the growth of manufacturing sector. And this could be non-core demand of the question. I can use the flow chart, right? Then I will talk about the government policies in this regard. To address, government has launched various policies to address these issues. Now, remember again those keywords, tailwords, keyword, statement. Tailword is what? Comment. Comment is the critical command word. Comment means I have a choice or I have a freedom to share my opinion on the government policies, right? So when I will be writing down the government policies, I would like to share my opinion. And how I am going to share my opinion? I will share my opinion under 2 parts. Yes, to some extent, the government policies has been significant. However, there are some challenges which needs to be addressed. This is the core demand of the question. And yes, one thing I have forgot to tell you. After this, with the growth of manufacturing sector, I will add one more dimension, and that is, before this government policies, I will try to establish the link between manufacturing sector and GDP growth. This link, I'm sorry for this. So this is what my structure is going to be, right? Just look at this, the flow in the answer. Introduction, I am going to talk about the trend, right? Then after introduction, I will highlight the issues with the sector, various issues, and this trend through some data. Then I will talk about the significance or the link between GDP growth and MSME, right? For this, the government has launched the policies. However, the policies have some significance and challenges remains. And then I will give some suggestions to overcome these challenges. And these suggestions will help me to achieve the target of 5 trillion economy. This is my broad objective, which I will achieve. This can be my conclusion. I hope this is clear, right? So now see, now many of you will start complaining, sir, in 10 marker, why are we supposed to write down all this? My friends, try to understand. It is not about one dimension, two dimension. It is about the holistic coverage of this particular issue. Even if you have 3 points, fine. If you want to write 3 points under the issues, you can write down only 3 points. But do not compromise with the structure of the answer. If you are going to compromise with the structure of the answer, no matter how good your content is, evaluator will not be impressed. Right? Especially these changes we have seen in last 5 or 6 years, where the marks are given to those answers which are holistic in the nature. Right? So that is the reason literal interpretation of the question is not appreciated. I hope this is clear. Right? So apart from this, again, student, if you have any queries, scan the QR code. You can fill the form. You can schedule the appointment with me and the other senior members as well. Right? And if you are in Delhi, you are most welcome. You can come along with your copies, your notes. We will be happy to sit with you and discuss each and everything. And this was all for today. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'll be coming up with these value addition videos in the future. And for any queries, any doubt if you have, do not forget to reach out. Thank you.